picking up where we left off in the last program, we need to add a couple things to make this a little bit more clear. Because when we ran this before, when we get the right answer, it tells us correct answer. But if we get the wrong answer, it doesn't tell us anything. So we want to add something to say the wrong answer. So let's add right underneath C out, and we're going to say wrong answer. And then let's give them a hint. We're going to say 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay, so we've got the wrong answer now. And we're going to run this and see what happens. So I want you to notice how we have it laid out because we're going to make some changes here. 2 plus 2 equals 4. And if I type in 5, that's not right? And so it tells me wrong answer. Oh, okay, that's great. So it does what I expect. But you should always test it with different values. So now I'm going to test it with a right answer. But when I do that, I get correct answer. That's good. But then it also says wrong answer. So it's telling me both answers. What I really want is I want it to only tell me wrong answer if it's not right. That seems pretty obvious, right? So what we're going to add is we're going to add an else. When we have code in blocks, what it is telling us is that that chunk of code is controlled by something. It's controlled by the condition. What I have here is I've got an if statement that is controlled by the user answer equals correct answer. So is it correct? And if it is, then this is going to run. If it's not correct, then this is going to run. To be fair, some people use their brackets a little bit differently than I do, and that's okay. That's a little bit of a stylistic change. I like to have my brackets, even though it's just one line following it. Okay, so now when we run it, I'm going to build it and see what it looks like. It should only output the one. Remember, we're going to test it with both. So I'm going to first test it with something really bizarre. I'm going to test it with 999. And that should be the wrong answer, right? Okay. But now I'm going to test it with 4. That should be the right answer. All right, great. The other thing you'll notice that we had a little bit of a weird output because we didn't have a new line there. So I wanted to put that. So one other thing we want to add to this program is going to be right at the top. So if we go all the way to the top, I'm going to press the division symbol twice. Now, because I'm not dividing, that division symbol actually creates a comment in C++. And it allows us to write whatever we want and get no errors. And the reason that is because when we write 2 like this, it's a comment that is meant to be just for the programmer to read. So I'm going to add a title to this program. I can spell a title. We're going to call this incorrect answer because we added the incorrect answer. All right, and then we're going to add concepts, okay, so that we can talk about what did we learn new this time. Well, we learned a couple things new. We didn't add a lot to this program, but we did add a whole new section. We added an else. So that's something we've done that's new. And an else always goes with an if. So we have an if that goes with an else. The next thing we added is we actually just talked about comments. And one of the good things we can do with comments is, let's say you were adding comments. The best reason to add comments is actually so that you can share your code with other people. It's one thing for you to be able to read your own code, but to write code that's so easy to read that anybody can read it is very, very difficult. So what we might want to do is add comments to make it easier to read. Another thing that makes things easier to read is how we name our variables. So I always try to use well-named variables, but one thing we can do to make it visually easier is change all of our variables to camel case. Now, variables are case sensitive, so if we change one, we have to change them all. And camel case means that we start with lowercase letters, but then every word after that, instead of putting a space, because we can't use spaces, we actually use a capital letter for the first letter of every other word. So now we get correct answer is a little bit easier to read. Another thing people do is sometimes they use an underscore instead of a space. I just stick with camel case, and I think that's easy enough to read. So we added a little bit more camel case.